Good morning.
And
Morning, Your Honor.
County Probate Court come to order. You're going to be testifying this morning. I need you to raise your right hand so we can swear you in.
do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're giving today is true and correct? So help you God.
I do.
Okay, you put your hand down and we'll start with cause number 30, the stated Joanne Alexander. Ms. Clapper, good morning.
Good morning, Judge. Is your name Inez Robertson? Wilberson. And are you the sister of Joanne Alexander?
Yes, I am.
And Miss Alexander was domiciled here at 910 Hamilton Street, Anahuac, Chambers County, Texas, for how many years before she died? At least 6 months, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And she died at the age of 78. Be close. October 9 of 2022. She was never married during her lifetime, was she?
No.
But she had 2 children.
Yeah.
The first child was Ronnie Alexander, now Ronnie Johnson, who was adopted by Ruby and Freddie Johnson
Yeah.
as a child. And the second is Michael Alexander, age 51, who resides here in Anahuac, correct?
Yeah.
And Michael has signed a waiver of service in this matter and is in file. And you also signed a waiver of service, but you're here today to prove up as the named executor in the will, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Now, you reside in state of Nevada in Las Vegas, and you're going to appoint a resident agent, and that's going to be your sister as a resident agent if anything requires it. You're here all the time. You come to Chambers County quite a bit from Las Vegas, so it's not like you won't be here in order to do what you need to do, correct?
Correct.
Now, I'm going to show you the copy of the will that's been attached, and now the original is filed with the court. And going to the date that the will was signed, you see where you're appointed as the executrix of the estate on page 2?
Yeah.
And also, you're the named beneficiary in the will, is correct?
Yes.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
And do you recognize the signature of Joanne Alexander?
Yes.
And that was signed on June the 25th of 2010. And after this was signed in front of Joe F. Sandlin and Rita F. Sandlin, correct?
Yes.
And also notarized by Beverly Boyd, the notary in Joe's office at that time. From 2010 until her death in 2022, did she ever tell you that she revoked this will?
No.
Or intended to deny it or anything during her lifetime?
No.
And after this will was signed in 2010, did she marry anyone?
No.
Did she have a child with anyone?
No.
So before the court, and as listed in our proof of death and facts, everyone that would have been a beneficiary is identified to the court and assigned a waiver. And the beneficiary is before the court today that is in the will. Are you willing to execute the powers as executor?
Yeah.
And you do not have any criminal, what?
The audio is very low.
Oh, how strange.
Wow, that's further to go, isn't it?
Yeah. Is it? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you okay.
All right. I don't know what happened. Where do you want me to start?
I could hear you the whole time. I don't.
We're good then. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
You have no criminal history that in any way would prevent you from taking the oath, and no, you've never been charged with anything in your whole life, have you? And the estate does not have any Medicare or other state agency claims against it, and no charitable organization is listed in the will, is it?
No.
All right. And of course, this is 2023, less than 4 years after her death. So, Judge, we're asking you to admit the will to probate, issue letters testamentary today.
So done. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ladies, have a good day.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, State Deborah Ann McCall. Good morning, Davidson.
Good morning, Your Honor. And I'm gonna get you to back up. And we're gonna have Janie step in here.
All right.
All right, Your Honor, this is just a determination of heirship. We don't have an administration.
Did we get your witness this morning?
Yes, Your Honor, they were all sworn in this morning.
You may proceed then.
Very good. I'm gonna call my first witness. I call Janie Fuller. Please state your name for the court.
Janie Fuller,
And what was your relationship to Deborah Ann McCall?
neighbor, friend.
And you've known her for more than 25 years?
Yes,
And well acquainted
yes,
with, she and her marital history and her family history.
yes,
And is it true at the time of her death, she had a fixed place of residence in Chambers County?
yes,
Were you aware as to whether or not she had a last will and testament?
no,
Okay, was that anything you guys ever discussed?
no, we never did.
Okay, so she never brought it up, you never brought it up, it was just never anything you talked about.
Correct.
And so in talking with her surviving spouse, Keenan, no indication that there would have been a will out there, is there?
No, there's not.
And at the time of her death, she was married to Keenan McCall, is that correct?
Correct,
And there had been one marriage prior to that, is that right?
correct.
And I know that was a long time ago to a gentleman by the name of Manton Stewart, is that right?
Yes,
And that terminated by divorce.
yes,
And were there any children born to or adopted by Deborah?
yes. 2 sons,
2 sons, okay, and they were
John.
John Stewart, okay,
Marriage, and Stephen the second.
and Stephen McCall.
Yes,
Do you know if Deborah ever took any children into her house and treated them as her very own, other than these 2 boys?
no,
And did she adopt any children?
no,
And you're not being paid for your testimony today, are you?
no,
And you don't benefit from this estate, do you?
no.
Your Honor, I passed this witness. I believe Miss Rendon is there somewhere.
There she is. You may proceed.
Hi, I don't actually have any questions. Mr. Davidson did a fine job asking everything I would have asked, so.
Okay, got your next witness. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor. I call Linda Clement. Okay, I'll be off screen, but you'll be able to hear the star witness. Please state your name for the court.
Clement,
And what was your relationship to Deborah?
she was my sister.
Okay, so known her whole life. And you heard all of the questions that I asked Janie about your sister's marital and family history. Would your answers be the same?
Yes,
But I want to ask you specifically, were you aware as to whether or not your sister had a last will and testament?
I was not aware of one.
Okay, did you guys ever have a discussion about anything like that?
No,
And did you visit with Keenan after her passing? Was that something you guys discussed at some point as to whether or not there was a will?
no, we did not discuss that.
Okay. But I want to confirm are you aware of any children that were brought into Deborah's house that she would have treated as her own that weren't her biological children?
No,
And she didn't adopt any children?
she did not.
And you don't benefit from this estate?
No,
And you're not being paid to be here, are you?
I'm not.
Okay, Your Honor, I pass this witness to Ms. Rendon.
Counselor.
I have no questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Keenan, we'll call you up here. Please state your name for the court.
Keenan McCall.
And you were Deborah Ann McCall's surviving spouse, is that right?
Yes,
And at the time of her passing, she did have a fixed place of residence here in Chambers County, is that right?
yes,
And you made a diligent search for a last will and testament, is that right?
correct.
Did you have, I'm just curious, did you have a valid last will and testament when she passed away in 2009?
No,
Okay, so you didn't have one, odds are that she didn't have one. But you guys never talked about one and you didn't find one, is that right?
that's correct.
And you looked everywhere that there might have been one hiding, is that right?
Yes,
And so you confirm the testimony that there were only 2 boys born to her,
Yes,
John and Stephen. And other than that, there were no children born to or adopted by her. Is that right?
correct,
And you're asking the judge simply to declare who her legal heirs are. Is that right?
correct.
Your Honor, I pass this witness.
Brenda.
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Your Honor, I would tell you that I'll take care of Ms. Rendon's fees. And other than that, would ask that you sign the order declaring the heirs of Deborah Ann McCall.
All right. Hereby approve the judgment declaring heirship and also the fees of the attorney Lyden. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Cheers.
Yes, sir. Have a great day. May we be excused?
You may be.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day, yourself. All right, cause number 43, the state of James Edward Rhodes. Ms. Porter, good morning.
Yes, just want to watch you.
No.
guys.
Good morning, Your Honor. How are you?
I'm good. You may proceed, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to call my first witness, Mr. Ronald D. Dickinson.
Hello,
Good morning.
Will you please state your name for the court?
Ronald D. Dickinson.
And you were personally acquainted with the decedent, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how are you acquainted with him?
I was married to his daughter, Becky, for 27 years.
Okay, so you had a long relationship with the decedent, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and I'd like the court to take judicial notice of the will that was filed with the court.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam.
Mr. Dickinson, do you recognize the decedent's signature? Are you familiar with the decedent's signature?
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you know his signature? How are you familiar with that?
Well, through the years, I've seen his signature on cards and just different things, you know, for about 27 years.
Okay. And do you recognize the signature that was subscribed to the will dated August 9th, 2011 as being the decedent's signature?
I do.
And at the time that the decedent signed his will, was the decedent of sound mind?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And the decedent was well over the age of 18 at the time he executed his will. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Your Honor, we pass the witness.
No questions. You may tell your next witness.
And the next witness will call, the witness Johnny M. Foreman. Will you please unmute your screen?
I don't see him on here.
Oh, it's a woman. She's at the top left.
Oh, I
And
do see her on here. Yes, ma'am. You see the mute button on your screen?
There
got
you go.
All right, you may
Excellent.
proceed.
Thank you. Will you please state your full name for the court, please?
Johnny M. Foreman.
And you are personally acquainted with the decedent, is that correct?
Yes, he was my older brother.
All right. He was your older brother. And you're not a beneficiary of the will, is that correct?
No,
Okay,
I'm not a beneficiary. No,
so you do not have any interest in the decedent's estate, is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay. And in fact, the beneficiaries of the decedent's estate are his 2 daughters, Miss Deborah Lee St. Clair and Miss Rebecca Gail Dickinson. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And having been the decedent's sibling, you are well familiar with his signature. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And at the time that the decedent executed his will, he was of sound mind. Is that correct?
Correct.
And he was well over the age of 18 when he executed his will. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And do you recognize the signature subscribed to the will dated August 9th, 2011 as being the decedent's signature?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Your Honor, I pass the witness.
No questions. You may proceed.
Your Honor, as our next witness, we call witness Deborah Lee St. Clair. Ms. St. Clair, will you please state your full name for the court, please?
Deborah Lee Lambert St. Clair.
And how were you acquainted with the decedent?
He was my father.
Okay. And the decedent died on May 28th, 2022. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And when he died, he was died in Channelview, Harris County, Texas. Is that correct?
In the nursing home, yes.
Okay. And at the age of his death, he was 87 years old.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And 4 years, no more than 4 years have elapsed since the date of his death. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the decedent had a fixed place residence at the time of his death in Chambers County. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the document dated August 9, 2011, which has been shown to you and purports to be the decedent's will, was never revoked so far as you know. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And a necessity exists for the administration of this estate, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And no child or children were born to or adopted by the decedent after the date of the will. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the decedent at the age of his death, he was a single man, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there are no gifts to a charitable organization or a government agency or to the state of Texas that are made, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this estate is a non-taxable estate. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the request is being made to the court that to waive any requirement of appraisal. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you are named as the independent executor. Is that executrix? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you are not qualified in the will to, you are not disqualified as serving as such, correct?
Correct.
By law. And so you would be required, you are not disqualified in accepting the letters testamentary as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
No questions.
No questions. Okay. Your Honor, request that the independent executrix, Miss Deborah Lee St. Clair, receive the letters testamentary.
All right, everybody look for probate and authorized letters. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Thank
Maybe you dismissed.
You may be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, number, excuse me, 44, the study William Wesley York Jr. Mr. Call, don't ask Mr. White if he's a good moral character because he's not around.
Questionable, Judge.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Your name is Stephen Kelly White.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
You were lifelong personal friends with W.W. York.
Yes, sir.
And he passed away on April the 10th of this year. Is that correct?
Correct.
And he had his residence in Chambers County on the day he passed away.
Yes, sir.
He had a written will dated May 22nd of 97. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you recognize this to be an exact copy of that will?
Yes, it is.
And you recognize this to be the signature of Mr. York?
Yes.
Okay. And so far as you know, he never married his whole life. He didn't have any children.
No.
And the will named you as the independent executor.
Yes, sir.
And you're not disqualified in any way from serving as an independent executor.
No, sir.
And he didn't leave anything to any charities, state or governmental entities.
No, sir.
And you're here today asking that the court admit the will to probate and name you as the independent executor of the estate.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Judge.
So done. That was easy. Thank
Thanks,
you. Good to see you guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, last but not least, number 45, the study Jocelyn Escatulli.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning. You may proceed, Counselor.
Judge Brandon Benoit here on behalf of the estate of Jocelyn Escatulli. Ms. Tully passed away on January 17th, 2023 in Jefferson County. At the time of her death, she had a fixed place of residence in Winnie in Chambers County, Texas. 4 years have not elapsed since her day of death. She died leaving a will, which has been offered to the court dated October 9th, 2017. To the best of my knowledge, that will was not revoked after its execution. She had no children born to or adopted by her. She was not married after the execution of that will. She doesn't name a governmental agency, state agency, or charitable organization. We're asking that this will be admitted to probate as a muniment of title. She did not apply for Medicaid benefits after March 1st of 2005. She had no unpaid debts owing to her estate at the time of her death other than those which would attach to real estate. And so we're asking the court to enter an order admitting the will to probate as a muniment of title only.
So done. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Judge. Have a good day.
You too, Melinda. Thank you, ma'am.
You know, we have civil, right?
Yeah, Reggie said we had a 10:30 eviction appeal.
Yeah.